Hey guys, having a blast. Team jamaicanscotchmafia here with a deck profile with my new near Nectar Musketeer build, and and that's in the background on Skype. But you know, my Skype's really pretty shit, to be blunt. So if he just yeah,
I'll be providing apt commentary. So
yep.
Yeah.
So basically, this deck's all about consistency and constantly hitting for chip damage, and then when you trigger, you attack all out with your 2k rear guards. What the deck does really well was consistently put a lot of intercept pressure on, which is kind of awkward to say, but I'll explain it a bit later with some examples from Nat. And Nat can testify to that.
It's annoying.
It's annoying. Okay, so we'll start off with the trigger lineup. We have 4 of the draw trigger Clover Fairy thing. We have 2 Dungan Chestnut, 2 Dancing Sunflower, 4 of the critical trigger Daniel, 4 of the hill trigger Hannah, and then the starting Vanguard Turnip Musketeer Kira, I believe it is. He's just the turnip.
So that Musketeer in the name is pretty important as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the starting Vanguard especially.
As the generic Counterblast 1 move to Soul, it's kind of underwhelming, but in the same fact that it's a Musketeer unit, it gives like a whole new meaning, and it adds that whole new level of versatility that they can provide. As in, you can call your Augusts off the top check, you can call your Turnip Musketeers to pop some damage.
You can even get Hurley grade 3.
Exactly, you can even get a Hurley Herman, the Inigo Montoya of the deck. And yeah, alright, so we'll move on to the grade 1s. We have 4 of Ruth. When you have a Musketeer Vanguard, she goes from 7k to 10k. She's pretty much like the second most optimal call from the deck, depending on the situation. If you need an attacker, you want either her or August. And if not, she's just a 7k boost and a Musketeer, so your calls are better off than a trigger.
Which one of them? Shadow Paladins.
Oh, wait a second. Garuru Bow.
Then
we have 4 Rebecca. Her effect is you counterblast 1, you sacrifice a Musketeer unit, and you check the top 4 cards and superior call 1. What this is good for is thinning out your deck and filling the graveyard for Cecilia's Limit Break. It's still also a 7k boost. And it's really pretty too. But yeah.
See, the thing is about that deck, it hits magic numbers so consistently. So
exactly
with
right.
the prominence of 11k Vanguards, as of this set, maybe not next set, but their ability to hit 16 or more is really important.
That's it. Then we have 2 of the Damage Giver. As a thing, we don't really like the Damage Givers with like our decks.
Damage Givers, yeah.
But
that is a question. Why do you run the grades 1 and 2 Damage Givers?
When you think about the deck, it's really not counterblast heavy, and it really relies on the drop zone more than one might think because of Cecilia's Limit Break. With the Damage Givers, if you get a damage early game, you can ride or call one of these, you can counterblast 1, give yourself a fresh damage, then use either Guyvan or Rebecca to pop one of your Turnip Musketeer, assuming you haven't already counterblasted for that to add a grade 3. So what this does is it adds a level of versatility and also fuels the grave. And if not then, it's still a better superior call than a trigger. Because as you can see, I run like very little.
To get Cecilia's Limit Break off, you have to have them either in like the drop zone or in the deck. And this happened to us before when we were playing, when I damage checked Kurt Cecilia and he couldn't activate the Limit Break. So with this, you can return any card from the damage zone, so
which is really helpful.
There, exactly.
So, basically it allows you to near perfect toolboxing, because you can toolbox your grave with Cecilia, and you can toolbox your damage zone with the Turnip Musketeers. So, they're pretty underrated, and even, like I said, they're still a better superior call than one of your triggers, like a Daniel or a Hannah, which you'd rather keep in deck. So, next we run 4 of the Null Guards, because we run 6 draw triggers. It's pretty standard, I think, and even with the new Crossroads coming out, it's going to be a pretty on-hit meta. And then,
especially with like the blood still to be revealed and Easel having a really, I don't know, good effect, bad effect.
But yeah,
but it's still you're going to be facing a lot of power, and you'll need Null Guards.
Then we have 4 Kyvan to start off with our grade 2s. He's the same as Rebecca. He's just a grade 2. He's a pretty decent superior call, because even then he's just furthers that concept of constant intercept pressure, which is really handy.
And once again, 9k. So.
And 9k is a good number. Then we got on to probably the MVP of the deck, August, the Masquerade clone. The rate of how much you can superior call this guy from the deck, and how recyclable with how recyclable he is with Cecilia, and how much generic advantage the deck turns out once you hit grade 3.
Put it this way, I was playing Kurt, and he got with 2 from the hand for a 10k guard, and then dropped another one with a null guard later on.
Exactly. You
will see them a lot if you play this deck.
It's a really good card. Like, just Masquerade clones are decent, but for this deck really needed it, and it got it. But it's just really a really good card with a trigger boost with a 7k boost behind it. It'll go to 24, which is a grouse number just to hit on the rear guard. Then we have the Turnip Musketeer Grade 2, which is what we talked about before. Then we have 2 Maiden of Rainbow Wood, just as a bit of extra draw pressure, which is better to look in the glass beads.
The deck doesn't counterblast, so if you get them out and you want to use them,
Exactly right.
It's better than glass beads as well because it's a girl.
And it's not a weird looking dragon thingy. Alrighty, then onto the Grade 3s. We have 4 Cecilia. Cecilia's lived in the shadow of Arboros Dragon so far with all the hype of how broken Sephiroth is. But really, this card's not so much broken, but it's very, very good. With how easy it is to constantly have 3 attackers on board without having to drop anything from hand, you just churn out advantage. And with her second effect allowing you to check the top 5 for like 0 cost, you can pop one of your called Grade 3s, hopefully get an August or a Guyvant, just to set up some intercept pressure for next turn. So it's really good. And then for our other Grade 3s, we have Herman, the Black Lily Musketeer. So the best flavor text in the game. When he's boosted by a Nectar unit, he goes to 12k, which is really handy. He goes to 19, like August. So he's like an inferior August, just in this concept that he can't intercept.
Musketeer name to the deck.
And that's it. He is in Musketeer as well.
Yeah.
So basically, the deck's all about having Musketeer units just in general. Like, I don't like a Corolla Dragon, even though it's an 8k, it'd make August go to 20. I don't like it just for the fact that it's not a Musketeer. And I really want to cut back on as many non-Musketeers as I can, just for that fact that I can't superior call them, or I might have to superior call a trigger just in case. But that's the name of the game, is just consistency. And this deck really gets out its key, like, optimal fields pretty consistently, which is, I suppose, what you aim for, really, in a deck.
And so you were talking before about the trigger lineup. Your preferred trigger lineup. So it's 6 draw 6 crits, is it?
Yes.
At the moment. And you prefer that over like stands or anything?
With the stands, I don't like stands as much in this because, I don't know, it feels like if you're going to hit with an August and you stand it, it's still only 17, whereas if I get a draw trigger or a crit trigger, I can get more explosive plays with the crit, or I can set up my hand for next turn with the draw.
And what we have been talking about recently is the importance of crits in the game today, and getting that early critical is really helpful against most of the decks in the current format.
That's it. So, I don't know. Anything else you want to add, Matt?
I can say that the deck is quite annoying to play against.
That's right. It's
I think one of the best plays I'd seen is it was down to Kurt's basically his last turn, and he was on like 5 damage. He had to win that turn, but he couldn't attack with a Vanguard because he didn't have enough cards in deck. And then he activated Cecilia's Limit Break, so he could, and that play won him the game. So.
On that note, I feel like I have to add that the game's optimal game states are either early or late. Mid-game, it's where it kind of slows down a bit, but late game is when you can actually get past that middle game state, and it becomes a battle of attrition. That's where the deck really shines.
You can really push for game.
Exactly right.
And the ability to just pump out an August every turn and then sack it. It's basically an extra 5k every turn.
Absolutely.
But it's a really good deck. Those interested in the Sephiroth build, I think you have to consider this build as well, because in my opinion, this build is actually better than the Sephiroth build.
Well, it definitely seems a lot more consistent. I played a pretty capable Sephiroth player the other day, and whilst she didn't get her like optimal plays off as much as she would have liked, which I can understand, bad draws, etc., when she did, I mean, she won more games than I won, but that's probably because I'm a poor player myself. But I felt like I could actually manage it pretty well because of the hand size generated with Cecilia's Limit Break and the draw trigger lineup, and even with Rainbow of Rainbow Wood.
Sometimes mid-game you can have up to like 8-10 cards in your hand as well.
Which is really nice because you can consistently get to that number.
And I was going to add something I've completely forgotten. You never get a bad draw, really.
Yeah, exactly right.
As you have a grade 1, 2, and 3 in your hand.
That's
you're
it.
pretty much set up because of that superior calling ability.
Absolutely. Well, I think I just might finish on that it's matchups. It excels against the matchups with the fast decks, I suppose you could say, as in Oracle Think Tank and stuff, because you can really easily like outlast them in a battle of attrition. I've played an Oracle Think Tank player regularly, and more often than not, it comes down to our last couple of cards in deck, and just because of Cecilia's ability to refuel your deck, it just shuts him down.
So quickly,
Exactly
you
right.
can just outlast them.
In saying that, though, the Kagero matchup and even the Aquaforce matchup is pretty annoying, just in the fact that Kagero retire your rear guards before you get a chance to intercept with them, which is one of the deck's main things. And Aquaforce, and just the fact that they churn out so many attacks per turn, it kind of renders like the advantage obsolete.
It's not the big attacks; it's just those small chip ones, so they can take out your rear guards every turn.
Absolutely.
Which is annoying.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's kind of annoying from the other side when you swing at the opponent's Vanguard with a stand trigger. So.
But that's just the name of the game. So yeah, that's been my Neo Nectar deck, I suppose.
We will be coming. Oh, that's awkward. We will be talking about the upcoming set 9 as well. We'd like to get in a video about that, or just general discussion.
Absolutely.
As of now, not all the cards are revealed, but we will be talking about that.
As more cards
a
revealed.
lot of box openings, a lot of deck profiles for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be like our set 5 all over again.
We're all pretty hyped for that set. It's set 5 all over again, as Pat said. And with 6 cross rides, it'll probably definitely change the current meta.
Absolutely. So, in saying that, guys, we're signing off. Until next time, have a blast.
Yeah, see you later, mates.